The outcome of this election is not what we wanted, not what we fought for, not what we voted for, but hear me when I say, the light of America's promise will always burn bright. As long as we never give up and as long as we keep fighting.
That was Vice President Kamala Harris earlier this month conceding the election to Donald Trump and urging to her followers to continue fighting for democracy. Stereotypes have, of course, long hindered female candidates, casting them as somehow too emotional, weak, or sensitive. And as analysts continue to examine whether or not these stereotypes played a factor in this election cycle, a new report shows the number of people who feel comfortable with a woman in leadership is on a downward trajectory in some of the world's most advanced economies. Here to discuss why, Maggie McGrath, editor of Forbes Women. Good to have you, Maggie. I really want to know why. And I know your team at Forbes Women has been reporting on this. I mean, what did you find when it comes to G7 countries, men and women in leadership positions?
There's this really interesting gender index called the Reykjavik Index. And what it does is it asks people in some of the world's largest economies whether men or women are more suited for leadership. Yeah. And the goal of this index is to have a score of a 100. That would mean that people see men and women as equally suited for leadership. And unfortunately, according to an early release of the 2024-2025 data, we are far from that level. The score for the G7 fell to 68. This is the lowest score since the index was launched in 2018. It peaked at 73 in 2021, ticked down to 72 2 years ago, was 70 last year. And so this is the third year in a row that attitudes towards female leaders fell in some of the world's largest economies. Wow. And what's interesting and concerning is that within the U.S., because of course the G7 includes Canada and Germany and France and other countries, within the U.S., when asked, are you comfortable with a female political leader, just 47% of Americans said yes, and that polling was done in September and October before the presidential election. So
there are only 29 countries where women serve as heads of state or government, and of the G7, only Italy, only one, currently has a woman in a top position. What is behind? Why do you think we're seeing these sort of regressive attitudes, if I may, toward women in leadership roles? I thought we were sort of forging ahead, weren't we?
I thought we were too, and I think it's a complicated picture. Researchers have a lot to discover here, but it comes down to a lot of the implicit bias that you and Huma and I have been talking about in these linear value segments. I mean, think about a few weeks ago. We were talking about that one study talking about how people have more trouble assessing a woman's potential for a role she's never held before than a man. Right. And I think it goes a long way to explain how even the Reykjavik Index, which also looks at corporate leaders, is finding that there's a gender divide and in how people view corporate roles. So women are more suitable for the more feminine sectors like education and healthcare. Men are more suitable for roles like engineering and automotive and manufacturing, which is also kind of wild when you think about a woman runs one of the largest car companies in the world, GM. And so that brings me to 29% of American C-suites are occupied by women, which is progress. That's up from 15% in 2015. And we should talk about this progress, but 29% is very obviously not parity. So if you can't see it, you question it.
All right, let me ask you this. Just 47% of those questioned in the U.S. this year said they were very comfortable with a female political leader. So it leads to this question. How much do you think these feelings played in Kamala Harris's bid for the presidency? And what's the takeaway for women who want to enter politics?
I think these feelings played more into the voters' minds than people might even be willing to say. Obviously, we know that there were a lot of issues on voters' minds as they entered the polls this year. But right now, I'm thinking about a 2017 study from Colorado State University called "Every Woman is the Wrong Woman: The Female Presidentiality Paradox." The presidency is often coded as masculine or requiring masculine traits, and academics and media analysts will believe that women are punished for their more feminine traits. Now, to your question about what this means for women who want to enter politics,
yes.
I do not think the message is to mimic men. I know from my interviews with CEOs and founders that people are looking for authenticity right now from their political leaders and from their corporate leaders. And I'm thinking about a story that someone on our 50 Over 50 told us, Agility Robotics CEO Peggy Johnson. She talked about a time someone told her earlier in her career, be more assertive. And so there was one meeting where she banged the table and she said, "I'm talking." And afterwards, someone said to her, "That wasn't like you. Why did you do that?" And so she took a step back and reflected on the genuine traits that she carries as a leader. She's an introvert, she listens, and it's that listening that has fueled her into some of the most powerful positions in technology.
And I think the more of us that are there, the more that it becomes possible. So strengthen numbers and don't give up, even though, Maggie, this has been a slightly depressing segment, okay? Because some of the findings are not the way that we would like them to be at this point, given the fact that we know that we can lead, and actually companies that have women leaders or diversity at the top do better in so many ways. So
we do know that. But I think it's incumbent upon the media to keep telling these stories. And that Pew study that you guys were talking about a few minutes ago, I think plays into this environment.
Sure does.
I
Yeah.
think we need more of those influencers talking about the women who are leading, because we know that young people, according to the Reykjavik Index, are doubting the ability for women to lead. So we just need to keep telling the stories of the women who are doing it competently.
And we will. Maggie McGrath, thank you so much. And of course, don't forget, nominations for the Forbes and Know Your Values 4th annual 50 Over 50 global list are open now. If you know a woman who lives in Europe, the Middle East, Africa, Asia, or South America who is shattering age and gender norms, consider nominating her today. You also can nominate yourself. You can get all the details at Forbes.com and KnowYourValue.com. Maggie, thank you. And